Hey there, thanks for joining us on the Chief Executive Aviator. I'm Simon Turner, your host, and you're wondering what we're all about. Well, we're pilots who happen to run businesses, or maybe we're business people who happen to fly. Either way, we've figured out that flying gives us a serious edge. Every week, I sit down with another pilot entrepreneur or executive who's discovered that their plane isn't just some cool ride, it's actually a secret weapon for growing their business. We're talking real stories about landing deals and actual landings, expanding markets, and yes, still making it home in time for dinner. Whether you're already flying for business or you're just dreaming about it, you're going to hear some pretty amazing stories about how aviation changes the trajectory of lives and businesses every day. So get your pre-flight done. We've got a great conversation headed your way. All right, Tyler Flagg, we are very blessed to have you here on the Chief Executive Aviator podcast. Thanks for making the time and joining with me today.
Of course. Thank you, sir. Good to chat again. This time not in person over coffee, but still a pleasure.
Brilliant. Well, tell us a little bit about the flying company and what you guys do, and then we'll dive into a bit about your background and how you ended up doing this.
Yeah, of course. So flying company, early stage startup in aviation. Care.com for aviation is kind of like how I've been describing it to people and investors and everything. Like it kind of simplifies things like that. But the goal is to create a one-stop shop to find, assess, manage, hire, and pay pilots all in one spot, and try to do it as seamlessly as we possibly can.
Brilliant. Well, that's amazing. So how did you end up getting here? You've been in the Air Force. You're now a startup founder. You've done some things in between. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, I really fell into aviation, and I kind of hesitate to even tell the story sometimes just because it makes me feel a little bit bad. Because obviously there's a lot of people who, they aspire to be pilots like their whole lives, and it just like never works out in one way, shape, or form. But for me, I grew up right outside of Manhattan. Most of my jobs were in Manhattan. I came from a family of actors, and so it was not anywhere close to the military or aviation or anything like that. I decided, pardon me, right after September 11th that I was going to join the military. I wanted to go in the Marines. My mom requested that I go to college and go in as an officer instead. So I applied to a few of the service academies, was not smart enough to get into any of them, but the Air Force was kind enough to say, hey, you're high enough on the waiting list. Here's a scholarship to go do ROTC. So went and did that. Still, no desire to be a pilot. Like I was a political science major, right? Like I was like, I don't know, I'll go and be an intel officer or something like that.
Yep.
One day, one of the ladies who worked at the detachment was like, hey, Tyler, you're going to put your name for a pilot slot? And I said, no. And she's like, well, if you do, you're going to get it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I don't know, that seems pretty cool. Let's give that a shot, and so put my name in and got it, and ended up going down to Pensacola and training with the Navy to start off in the T-34. And then went and flew the Beech 400, which the Air Force calls the T1. I don't think they really use it anymore. But and then my first operational unit was a special operations squadron, where we essentially did intra-theater special operations mobility. So we took small teams of special operators, SEALs, Rangers, Green Berets, what have you, kind of wherever they needed to go. And that was a super unique experience, and I can chat a little bit more about that if you'd like. But did that. I was in for about 14 years, deployed 6 times, flew operationally in about 67 different countries, and then got out 4 years ago. Took a job flying a PC-24 in Bentonville. I was not particularly inclined to go to the airlines. There's been many days where I have woken up and thought I really should have just done that. That would be a lot easier. But yeah, and then, through that process, and we can chat more about that again later as well. But through that process, started working on this, and there's a lot of problems to solve in aviation. This is just one of them, but it was one that was particularly a pain for me when I was starting. And so that's what I started working on.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Now, you're a child actor. Where should you look for your IMDb credits and that sort of thing?
Oh gosh, So I mainly did like off Broadway and stuff like that in the city.
Nice.
Did a couple like tiny little like commercials and like
Yeah.
little bit parts in movies. There's one science fiction, like 30-minute long science fiction film
Yep.
that is called Pioneer 12 that no one is going to be able to find. I promise you. But yeah, just
Love it.
I would say I was probably a very average, if not below average, child actor. My
Love
mom
it.
would say I just didn't get my big break, but she's kind. So
Oh, you gotta love mums. Always the biggest champion. Well, I'm glad it ultimately worked out for you. And yet, I mean, what a fascinating career in the Air Force and doing that kind of job. Like, there's probably only what a few dozen of you that have done that kind of job. It's not, it's not like you're an F-16 pilot where there's thousands of you. That's very
yeah, it was definitely a really unique community, and the funny thing about the military is that the military is like the world's largest bureaucracy, right? It's like 3 million something
yeah,
employees, and that was not an environment that I particularly thrived in.
hmm
However, I was very fortunate in that squadron that I went into right out of pilot training, it was like the closest thing to a startup that you can possibly find in the
yeah,
military. I've got a challenge coin over there. I was the number 81 person in the
hmm
squadron in its history.
yeah,
Literally had just purchased the first plane, and we're still just trying to figure out exactly like how to provide value to the end consumer, who was the special operations team, right?
yeah,
And so you had like one lieutenant colonel at the top, and then a mess of second lieutenants and first lieutenants who just, we had no idea what we were doing. It was like the monkeys running the zoo, right? But we were just trying to figure it out, and we ultimately did, and I think we did
yeah,
a pretty good job of that. But it's funny looking back on it now, and it's a bit of like the narrative fallacy, I'm sure. But looking back on it, there's a lot of guys who we all got into that unit around the same time right out of pilot training, and a lot of them have all gone on to build their own startups, and and work at startups, and yeah, it's just been an interesting thing, kind of like
yeah.
seeing where everybody's gone after that.
That's awesome. So you uh, you've gone from flying the military, then flying sort of corporate aviation, and now you're building a software company essentially. What are some of the kind of learnings from either your military days or your corporate aviation days that sort of carried into the actual company building? So not we'll talk about the product in a second, but what about just actually building a company and the discipline or the leadership and that sort of thing?
That's a good question. There are a lot of people who say that having a military background is extremely helpful for starting a company. I would take the opposite side of that
Yeah.
of that opinion. Again, kind of the world's largest bureaucracy. Like it sets you up really well to go into like corporate America, right?
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that necessarily sets you up really well for startups. I'm obviously in the beginning of my journey, so like who
Yep.
knows if I'm going to be successful in in
Yeah.
general, right? But my very first squadron commander, really good dude, very well respected, no nonsense type guy. He always kind of, his mantra to all of us was like, just because you've got a badge that says special does not mean you're special. Just
Yeah.
keep your head down,
Mhm.
focus on your work, and just keep working. And that's kind of like what I've just kept doing. Like I just can't not, and so
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm trying to do now, right? I just keep my head down, I keep working, I keep trying to build things that are valuable to people, and
Yep.
I yeah, try to get feedback, and just keep trying to make it better.
Brilliant. So let's change gears into the flying company. Now, your product connects operators with contract pilots. Sorry, I've got the police outside my door.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
They're going after someone else, not me. But you connect operators with contract pilots. What was your first-hand kind of experience that guided the features. You've got, pilot profiles, you've got insurance, those kind of things. Tell me a little bit about that. So like how you uncovered the problem that's now become your company.
Yeah, most definitely. There've been a lot of different attempts to solve this problem historically, right? So yeah, lots of people have tried to solve this problem in one way, shape or form, right? From your very kind of basic things, just like forums and directories and automated directories and Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups. That's kind of like one side of the spectrum, and then obviously you've got like the staffing firms on the other, which you call them up, they do the job, they find you a pilot, they also charge you a non insignificant fee for that service, right? So when I first took the job as a chief pilot for the PC-24, it was kind of trial by fire to a certain degree, right? Like I'd managed a bunch of planes in the military, but I never managed a plane in Part 91. And it's a whole different ball of wax, right? Like you've got taxes and insurance and LOAs and budgets and monthly reports and all that kind of stuff. And so for the first year, I was just, again, heads down, like reading multiple books on aircraft management from, management, degrees at Embry-Riddle or whatever, wherever I found those books. And was just trying to figure it all out and keep my head above water. And one of the things that was the largest time suck for me was that in the very beginning with the PC-24, there were a few people who were given out single pilot insurance. And so even though it's a single pilot plane, it was a brand new plane, they didn't really know how to underwrite it. And so, I was constantly having to find someone to fly along with me, like for literally every single one of my boss's trips, right? Yeah. And I would have to start that process a week, if not more, out from the actual trip, and just hope that like I was given that enough, given that amount of time for notification. And it literally would take me up until like the final hour to get everything, locked down, right? Yeah. You start with a list of people that you either know through your own network, or you go to Facebook groups or forums or whatever. You reach out to all of them just to see if anyone is still interested and they're still current. Maybe half of them actually get back to you, right? Yeah. Then you've got to send, you got to talk to your insurance broker. You got to get a pilot history form. You got to send that out to them. They got to fill it out. And most of the time they're just going to pencil whip it, frankly, which is a whole other problem. And they might take a day or two to like actually get that back to you because they obviously have lives, right? They're like doing other things and they've got other flights. By the time you finally get all those back, now you got to send them over to your insurance broker. You got to wait for them to give you like a thumbs up on somebody and, maybe add them as like a named insured and do the waiver of subrogation and all that kind of stuff. I'm not an insurance broker, but, you talk to insurance brokers and they'll tell you what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And then, finally, like I'd hear back on who I should go with, reach out to them, say like, hey, can you confirm like you're still available? Great. Okay. Now I've got to spend some time on the phone with them, sharing information about the aircraft and the itinerary and the logistics and everything. And, then get them synced up with the accountants so that they can actually get paid. And then after the trip, and they send me all their, receipts in an email, and I got to send it over to the accountants and they got to get paid. And it's just like, it was just the kind of thing that just needlessly took way too much time. Right. And of course, like the whole time, like leading up to the trip, I'm just like getting more and more anxious that like it's not going to work out. And then we'd be hosed because I wouldn't have somebody to fly with and we didn't have single pilot insurance yet. And so that all kind of went into like, all right, well, this is clearly an issue. People have tried to solve this issue, but it's not being solved in the way that I would like it to have been solved, right? There's always some element that's missing. And so when I first started working on it, I had it limited to just the PC-24. And it was also like a rudimentary alpha version. Send it out to some pilots, send it out to some operators, and then just kind of like went step back, saw what happened, and then kind of kept iterating from there. So for example, like the pilot history form, like that was kind of like a critical thing in the very beginning where I took about a dozen different pilot history forms from different insurance brokers, aggregated them all together, figure out what the most common questions are. And then that became the basis of the pilot profile. So whenever a pilot goes in, takes them 20, 30 minutes or whatever. They'll fill out their whole profile with, front and back images, their certificate, their diplomas from going through 6158, differences training if necessary, all their hours and, ratings and type ratings and everything like that. They can also download that pilot history form right from their own profile whenever they want. And I've yet to find an insurance broker that would not accept one of our pilot history forms because it all comes in like a pretty standardized format. And so, then, now you can kind of create a profile for your aircraft. You can create a trip that gets sent out to all the pilots. And then when they provide quotes, we give a dashboard so you can see all the different profiles. You can download the pilot history forms right from there.
Yeah.
You can verify their information against the FAA's registry by like clicking a button on their profile. You can see all their quotes in a standardized format, along with, the pilot's like estimated expenses for hotels and air travel and ground transportation and what have you. And then, when you actually decide on somebody you want to hire, you can click hire. You can sign a pilot services agreement with them, so you actually have some sort of documentation, right? And then payment processing happens through Stripe, and so you don't have to bring the accountants in. Like everything is just kind of like as the chief pilot, like I could handle everything without needing anyone else, right? And I also didn't need to somehow try to justify to my boss that like, we should just go to a staffing firm and you should pay the 40% markup, right? Like that was not going to fly with him, right?
Yep.
So that was kind of like the genesis. I'm not sure if I totally answered your question, but yeah.
You definitely did. I mean, in a marketplace, the best kind of marketplaces are where multiple sides of the marketplace kind of have, the problem and the kind of, there's a commonality between the problem and it. You just laid it out. There's just so many moving parts and pieces, and whether you're the pilot, whether you're the chief pilot trying to organize this, the operator, like it's just so many moving parts to get it. And it's really easy to screw it up. And then if something happens and you're not really properly insured, or worse still, there's, people get injured, that sort of thing. It's just, I mean, what you're doing, I think, is really amazing and solving a huge problem for, it's a niche part of the world and the economy, but it's also kind of a very important part. It's the entrepreneurs that are flying in these planes, that are building businesses, the flight departments that are moving people around. It keeps the economy going. So
yeah, and no, I very much appreciate that. Because like the more that I was researching it, like it kind of dawned on me that for whatever reason, pilots are kind of one of the final remaining like highly credentialed and highly certified professional professions that does not already have an intelligent like staffing marketplace that backs them, right? Like doctors and lawyers and truckers and skilled labor, like they all have like something like this that already exists, but pilots just don't. And I don't exactly have like a perfect working thesis on why that is yet.
I think that's probably just generally in aviation, like everything is slow and backwards, and like, hey, why is there not like a hangar marketplace? But it's all just done through like telephone tag, and who do you know on a field to get a hangar? And then same with like even trying to get a part for a plane. It's still there's like people who've tried these marketplaces and really haven't really done it properly. It fascinates me every day.
You're 100% right. Like there's a lot of stuff that could be improved in aviation, right? And like it's just this weird industry where the planes that are being manufactured nowadays are the most sophisticated things ever, and but then the ecosystem is often like decades behind the planes themselves. It's fascinating, man. I don't know.
It creates a lot of opportunity, right?
It does most definitely, and like there's a ton of different problems that we're hoping to be able to solve over time, right? And so it's just kind of baby steps,
Brilliant. So tell us what the Forum Ventures Accelerator was like. I know you recently just went to New York and were part of that, and I'm from the tech world as well, so I know that program very, very well, and people who have been through it. But tell us what that was like for you being an early stage entrepreneur and building something in an industry they've probably had not a whole lot of exposure to, and what that was like.
Yeah, so it's been great, and I'm still technically in the accelerator
Yep.
as we speak. It started a little over a month ago, I
Hmm.
think, but yeah, Forum Ventures has been amazing. So they are kind of strictly a B2B SaaS focused VC and
Yep.
accelerator program. And I targeted them very intentionally because when I first started working on this, I was conceiving of it as just, this is just a marketplace, right? But the more I talked to people and, pilots and operators alike, it very much dawned on me that yes, it is a marketplace, right? You've got operators on one side, you got pilots on the other, but the real value is created in the connective tissue between those two in the
Yep.
SaaS layer.
Yep.
And I'm pretty good with aviation. I'm pretty decent with people, but I've never built B2B SaaS, right? And
Yep.
so I should
Yep.
go find people who have done that, who can help me.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was very fortunate enough to get into their accelerator. I think there's only other, five other companies in my cohort, so
Hmm.
they don't let too many people in. So I'm very grateful for that. There is one other aviation company that has been in their portfolio,
Cool.
but like they've got like 600 companies, so we're
Yeah.
like a very small percentage of that. But
Yeah.
it's good, and I think that's what this industry needs, right? Like we need some people who have experience from the outside to be able to kind of pull in and be able to help us improve.
Yeah. It's I always say one of the things that you find out as you get a bit older is that as a kid you just like took things for granted that you could go and do this and that there was an app for that, or someone had created this thing. But what you realize as you get older is there was someone like you sitting behind a computer or getting out there in the field and actually like building something, and it took a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears to actually put that thing out in the world and improve it. It didn't just happen, sort of thing. So
Yeah, it yes, and I appreciate you saying that. And man, it's a very uncomfortable thing, right? Like putting yourself out there constantly and just dealing with the feedback, like both good and bad, right?
yep,
Like I was actually so when I was down at the Citation Jet Association convention this last week,
yep,
it was such a great experience. And so like we're partners with them, and we just launched with Citation Jet support, where we'd been just strictly in Pilatus prior to that.
yep,
And so got to talk with a ton of folks who were there, and they're very successful business people in their own right, and enough so that they've got a Citation Jet that they fly around. And it was so much fun, just bringing people over to the booth and kind of explaining, how things work, and when they realized that, this was the thing that I'm building, and I was the guy, right?
yep,
That they were just like so excited, and they're just like, oh man, like this is so much fun. I remember what it was like 25 years ago when I was in the exact same phase that you're in,
yeah,
right? So just like keep grinding. And one of the guys told me this funny thing. He was like, and this is the first time I've heard it put like this. He was like, having a startup is like having a baby, except when you have a baby, everyone is telling you that's the cutest baby. But when your startup is your baby, everyone's just constantly telling you how ugly your baby is.
yes, that's a
I
I've
was like,
heard
that I've
so
actually never thought about it like that, but that is so perfect.
yeah, yeah. Everyone telling you how shit your product is, what you got to improve, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I now do this serially. We'll create 15 companies over the next 4 years out of our venture studio here, and we get beaten up every day.
Yep.
So I'm going to use that analogy because I think it's very, very true. But
Gotta have thick
hey,
skin.
it's all part of the fun, and it's what do they say? It's years and years of turmoil truncated by minor moments of triumph, which is very
That's good.
typical in the startup world. I mean, on that point of the time down in San Antonio, you were meeting with owners and operators that fly those citations for the business, and they quite often they're the pilot flying the plane, or they may have another pilot. But I know a lot of guys that fly them single pilot, depending on the type of citation. But one thing I come across a lot is they are taking a contract pilot with them, even if they are rated for single pilot. They're taking a contract pilot with them because they have to juggle business and flying. So they're going for a meeting in New York. It's going to be all day. They're going to be getting back in the plane at night, and they're coming back here to Tulsa, for instance. How would flying company be something that would sort of work with, their offering, and be their right seater, or even be their left seater and make them fly in the right seat? How would that fit with those kind of operators that fly their own plane sometimes, but on those type of trips, like to take someone where I know it's a big hassle for them to find the right contract pilot to take?
Yeah, most definitely. So, the platform is really originally designed for the chief pilot or the owner operator. I am more recently now having conversations with management companies and corporate flight departments as well, who struggle with these same issues. But yeah, the core of it was built, as a very streamlined place to be able to kind of give you all the tools that you need to be able to make your own staffing decisions, right? And so there's a lot of different people who use it for a lot of different reasons, right? It could be you need to fly with someone for 25 hours or something, right? Who's a quote unquote mentor pilot, which that's a problematic term because it doesn't really exist, which we can talk about at a later time. But like most insurance brokers just like defer to whatever your open pilot warranty is. And if the pilot meets that criteria, then they are by definition a mentor pilot. And so you've got some people who use it for that, right? To be able to find a high time pilot, to be able to fly with them for the first like 24 hours, 24, 25, whatever. Or like just kind of incidental with the rest of their trips. They might bring a SIC on from time to time if it's a complex mission or it's a really long day like that. Or, if they just, if they don't want to take their plane to annual, right? Because then that burns a whole day. They've got to go drop it off. They've got to go get an airline back or rent a car or something like that. Then they'll just hire somebody to be a PIC or a full crew or what have you, right? So there's a lot of different reasons that someone could possibly do it. And the way that it works is you take like 10 minutes, you create a profile for your aircraft, you create a trip. When you create a trip, you can either select, I need an entire crew, a PIC and an SIC. I need a PIC single pilot. I need a PIC who's going to be part of a crew. I need SIC. And then you can kind of like, base your hiring decisions, based off of it. Right.
Awesome.
And then, you've got the dashboard where you can kind of assess all the different quotes that come in and try to find the right person. You can message with them back and forth. And so like everything is kind of centralized in one dashboard. So you're not like sharing your personal cell phone information especially if you're a high net worth individual, you probably want to be pretty delicate about who you give those out to.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I'd imagine it's pretty easy to kind of calculate the ROI. Like I mentioned, it's a real hassle for a lot of these operators to go and find those people. But it's got pretty much everything. Like you vet the pilots, they can pull in the quotes, as you say, into the dashboard. You do all the invoicing, that sort of thing. How much time do you think it saves every time you got a flight?
Yeah, well, so, I can definitely speak from my own experience, right? Where I was probably spending 6 or 7 hours over the course of a week to kind of get everything aligned. And, my entire goal has been to be able to, make this whole thing happen in sub 30 minutes, right? And it just goes down to like the time value of money, right? Like, obviously, time is the most finite of the finite resources, right? And, people have known that forever in modern history. You've got like your, Tim Ferriss's and your Naval Ravikants and stuff like that who've made big pushes to get people to, put a dollar amount on what their, hour of time is, right? And then if you can do it for less than that, then you outsource it and right. And that's, funny enough, that's something that people in business aviation have known for decades. Like that's why the whole thing exists to begin with. Like if you value your time at like $3,000 an hour and it's going to take you 5 hours to do a commercial flight somewhere, well, that's $15,000. I'm not a math person. I think I did the math on that, right? But then,
no public math, so you're
right. But then, you get a light jet that's like $2,000 an hour direct operating costs, and it takes 2 hours to get somewhere, right? And then, so plus your $6,000, $4,000, $10,000, right? So then you just saved $5,000, right? By having that plane that can, speed things up for you. And so, if this is the kind of thing that like for every trip, it takes 2 to 3 hours of your time, then being able to do that in sub 30 minutes is something that far outweighs the, the service fee charge for using the platform.
Yeah.
And, even talking with, management companies, like there's been some management companies that I've talked to where literally 25% of their staff's week is spent just sourcing contract pilots and like managing the flights that they're on, which is, that's a lot, and so, there's still definitely, ways that we're going to continue improving the service and being able to speed things up even further. But like the one minor little correction there is that, like, unlike a staffing firm, right? Like, we're not hiring the pilots on as W-2 employees, right? And so, like, we're not kind of like actively vetting the pilots ourselves because they're not employees of flying company, right? It's a marketplace.
Yeah.
And so, they have to fill out their whole profile with their certificate number and all that kind of stuff. And we provide links to the FAA so that you can, validate all that kind of stuff yourself. And we're working on, doing some kind of know your customer, like, identity validation and everything like that. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that minor point.
Yeah, no, that's a good clarification. I guess, with that that in mind, looking ahead, what kind of enhancements are you thinking you'll build in? Obviously, AI is flooding our world of software, but is there a predictive kind of matchmaking side of things or trip monitoring? What's most exciting for you to build next that maybe your customers down at the citation convention wanted, or from other feedback you've heard?
Yeah, so all the above. Those are there's a lot of things that we have in the pipe right now that we're working on, and we hope to be rolling out here in the next couple months. Again, like, I'm an idiot, so like most of the really good ideas are just ideas that have come into my inbox from people who are using it. Are like, hey, it'd be really cool if you did this. I'm like, oh yeah, shoot, that would be really cool. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know exactly what we're going to build. Like, we've got some things we're working on, but predictive matching, 100%. There's a lot of different tools for pilots and for operators that are going to be super valuable.
That's awesome.
One of the things that I'm really excited about, because data is really the name of the game, right? Like, the more data that we have, then the more we can use like these tools to be able to improve the experience. And so, being able to integrate like logbooks and stuff like that for the pilots, like, on one hand, it helps the pilot speed up the process of onboarding, right, by being able to just pull all that information in, but then gives the operator a lot more sense of comfort that these numbers are accurate, right? And then you can leverage AI to be able to like figure out, like, hey, who has the most experience going into the airports like that are on this itinerary, right? And then you can use that to kind of like work with the weighted algorithm and whatever to be able to provide a better recommendation, right?
Yeah.
And so all that stuff is super fun, and we're excited about it. And it's just the more people are on the platform and the more trips that get created and the more data we have, like, the better we'll be able to make all those improvements.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that from a predictive standpoint, and also just trying to understand the logbooks. Like, if you're flying into Rifle in Colorado, or you're flying into one of those mountain airports, you really want someone who's had experience kind of going in and out of there
100%.
that time. It's I love that. That's a great one. What you're a solo founder. What has been sort of the most powerful lesson so far on this journey that you would give someone who is trying to build in the aviation tech space? There's more and more people doing it. As we talked about, it's a pretty backward kind of industry, but that gives a lot of opportunity. You're doing it. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out and building some aviation tech?
Oh gosh, that's great. I mean, I guess I would say don't be a solo founder, to be honest, because it's a grind. I'm very tired at the end of the day, and then I also don't sleep well, so it's like a bad combination, But then again, it goes back to like, it's my baby, right? So, well, so I think the one piece of advice, and like, this is all just kind of coming from where we recently raised an angel round and brought on the first institutional investor, is that a lot of people are just not familiar with aviation, right? It's a very small industry. That's why you can go to NBA and you're guaranteed to like bump into people that you know, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the people on the outside looking in, they'll look at the numbers and say that the market is too small, right?
Yep.
Which is probably, part of the thesis why there's not a lot of venture dollars coming in to support startups in the aviation space. Like, sure, you've got private equity that will buy up, large management companies and other, big dollar amount companies. But for everybody else, like who's just starting out and small, like you kind of have to, you have to create the vision, right?
Yep.
Like why is it that what you're doing now can grow and go into a bunch of different, like, very related, horizontals or verticals, right?
Yep.
But then it's also, that's not just like an exercise in fundraising, right? That's like a very useful exercise in terms of like, how can you provide the most value to this industry, right?
Yep.
And ForeFlight, for anyone who says it's like too small an industry, like I just point to ForeFlight, right? Like
Just gone through
like
multi-billion dollar.
like yeah, like I've never met Tyson Ways. I hope to be able to meet him one day. But I would venture to guess that like when he was first starting working on this, no one that he was talking to possibly thought that a digital maps on iPads for pilots was going to be the size that it is today, right? And it's probably worth about $1 billion, I would guess. I know that they just got offloaded to private equity by Boeing,
Yeah.
with like a roll up with Jeppesen, and very exciting for them. And I hung out with their team down in CJP a lot this last week, and just great folks. And so really exciting for them. But like they're literally probably about $1 billion company, and it's mainly built off of pilot subscriptions, right?
Yeah.
Like pilots are willing to pay for things that they value, and that you get so much value out of ForeFlight. Like it's an amazing product, and
Totally.
I'm pretty sure my unit in the Air Force was like the very first military unit to use ForeFlight, again because we didn't know that we weren't allowed to do it.
Yeah.
And like we're having to lug around like massive duffel bags with charts from like every single northern African country that we're going to be flying around with, and we're just like, oh well, this is ridiculous, can't we just use this thing? So we probably had to ask for forgiveness instead of permission a little bit with there. But
Fascinating. It's yeah. Wow. That is a good story to point to. I for some reason haven't done enough of that, but I know that one of the ForeFlight co-founders, I don't know if it was Tyson, but has just actually stepped back into a CEO role. I think with a new kind of aviation company, in the MRO space, I believe. But
that's great.
yeah, it's a tough world to get into, but there is money to be made in it, and hopefully more VCs will see that, particularly in this era where you can go and build a company with 20 people that's worth tens and tens and tens of hundreds of millions of dollars even. So you
Correct.
can be a lot more efficient. So a little bit of capital can go a long, long way. And I'm sure you're going to be able to show that. I'm going to switch to a sort of a lightning round here for you. You've had a lot of co-pilots over the years. If you had one last flight and you wanted to do it with a co-pilot that you've already had in your career, or a dream person, dream aviator that you would want to have in the right seat, who would that be?
All right, I'm going to butcher this name. The only reason I didn't fail French in high school is because I used to have lunch with the French teacher all the time. But
Yeah.
The guy who wrote Wind, Sand, and Stars, Antoine
Yeah.
de Saint-Exupéry.
I can never say his name either.
Yeah.
I love it. I have a watch with him scribbled on the back of
nice.
it. It's I love those books, but I can never say the name.
Yeah, like I read that book while I was deployed in Northern Africa, and we're just,
Awesome.
we're living off the economy and just kind of bouncing around to like little, airports and dirt strips and stuff like that. And it was so cool for a lot of reasons. Like first, it's just like beautifully written, and if you're into beautifully written prose, like it is a great book. but also like they were going to all the different same places that like we were flying into. And so it was really neat, just like being at an airport and like being at a hotel or something like that and reading it. And like the chapter is about the
Yep.
same place that you're in, but just 100 years prior. And also like, I don't know, man, like I felt like I had to do a bunch of like, really weird, sketchy stuff back in the day. But like compared to those dudes, like it was
Oh
nothing,
no.
like they were just, you know, kings among men in terms of aviation, right?
Yep.
So
Uh,
yeah, that would be fun to just kind of fly with him and like swap some stories.
I think that's a great one. John Zimmerman, who's the CEO of Sporties, who you should try to get onto. I can connect you to and jump on his podcast. But he is a brilliant podcaster. But he also has the way he tells the stories from all of those books. He's a big fan of them. He's is great. And yeah, man, those guys flying no instruments in the weather, in the mountains, in the
Then
middle
you
of
just,
nowhere.
yeah, you just like crash land and just hope that your buddy like
Yeah,
3 days later will be able to see you and like come land and pick you up.
kind of
Like, oh,
wild.
oh,
Always blows me away.
don't like that.
You've let's say you have to pitch the flying company to someone with no aviation experience. They have absolutely no idea. They've never flown in a citation before. They've never flown in a PC-24. They've flown in seat 52 of 52C on Southwest, and that's it. How do you pitch it?
Care.com, care.com for pilots.
Yeah,
Yep. That's my go-to.
I love it.
And I'll probably keep using it until they sue me and tell me to stop using their name or something. I guess I don't really know how that works, but
well, I've had a cease and desist from Warner Brothers for my last company, so you might get one of those at some point, or they might be like, "Hey, can you just give us some free usage?" Because I'm pretty sure the Care.com guys have made a killing and
oh,
probably
that's a
have a
great point.
citation or
I
a.
should go look them up on JetNet and see. Yeah.
Absolutely. If you could pair any two kind of entrepreneurs to be in the cockpit with you, so you could learn from them while you fly somewhere, who would they be?
Well, I'm just waiting for you to upgrade to a PC-24, and then I'll be able to refresh my type rating, fly along with you, pick your brain. I'm an hour away, like it'd be great. It's match made in heaven. Love it.
Let me get to the PC-12 first. I also I just did 2 hours of instrument currency this morning, and my instructor failed half my panel and my autopilot. And boy, after doing everything on autopilot for a long time, it was a bit of a shock to the system to have to hand fly.
Yep.
I'm quite exhausted.
Yep.
It's a lot of brain power and stress, but
Well, you don't look any worse for the wear, so good on you.
I feel worse, and after that, I'm like, I think I'm a while from flying a PC-12. The insurance will let me, so I need to get some more practice. But thank you, that would be lovely one day, and just give me a few years. I got to sell some of these companies that we're building before I can afford
Love
that. What's your dream plane? You've flown a lot of awesome planes, but what's your dream plane? You're in Bentonville, so is it a Cub or something to go out to all those strips in the Ozarks, or is there something else?
I would love a seaplane.
Yeah,
I think that would just be so much fun. We've got obviously a lot of lakes out here.
yeah,
And if I had, enough time and bandwidth to be able to, pursue getting, all my certs and stuff like that. I'd love to be able to do that. And that'd be so much fun to be able to go out to Beaver Lake and
brilliant.
stuff like
Well, if
that.
you, I've got the DPE that I use is a seaplane guy, and can always connect you with him here. He does some seaplane training, so.
No, I love that. Yeah, obviously we've got a ton of we obviously here in Bentonville we've got a ton of grass strips and stuff like that, and a lot of good backcountry flying. I've done a little bit of that, and it's another one of those things. Right, I just need to when the time is right, I will prioritize that for enough time to be able to get comfortable and then go do that. But the tail dragger stuff is. Oh man, it's so much fun, but it's also like you kind of got to forget a lot of the stuff that you've learned from flying over 15 years and then, relearn it in a different way.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it'd be super fun to, once I've got a little bit of bandwidth to be able to kind of get into that kind of stuff, maybe get a seaplane rating and go do that.
Brilliant. You've got one last flight, and you're going to fly to the destination of your dreams. Maybe it's a cool airport you want to land at. Maybe it's just a great place you want to visit. Where are you going?
Oh man, that's great. So I had maybe it's still a goal of mine. I think it would be super fun to film like a documentary or something like that, and like go with my best friend Trevor, who he's got a really big social media following. Does it. I don't know, like he's on Instagram and stuff like that. But like Air Force guy, I've known him for 20 years. He was a Thunderbird pilot. And got out and now he flies
YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, nice. Okay, yeah. So we've known each other forever, and he lives here near me, and our kids hang out all the time. And I've talked to him about like, wouldn't it be fun, like maybe when the kids are like grown up or something like that, like we could film like a documentary of just going to all the most dangerous airports in the world, like I don't know why that sounds like a good idea to me, but like I think it would be super fun to like go into Lucla and go into whatever that place in France is. I can't remember.
The one where it's got a super short runway and they fly those PC-12s like off the cliff.
Yeah, and it's like a ramp,
Yeah.
And it'd be fun to do that, going with people who, obviously have experience there and like know what they're doing, and be able to film the whole thing. And I think that'd be a ton of fun, because as much as I enjoy not having to do that kind of stuff for a job anymore, right? Like I always joke that, landing, on NVGs at night into a 20-foot wide, dirt strip in the middle of nowhere is like super cool when you're 25, but then you're 35 with kids and you're just like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? It would be fun to kind of do that, like as a one-off thing, as like as a big project. So yeah, it'd be fun to do something like that one day.
Well, I look forward to seeing that with you guys here in the next decade or so, when your kids are probably a little bit older and that sort of thing, and you've had a chance to build this into a big business.
And then buy some really good life insurance or something,
Well, maybe let's not let the life insurance people because they might not ever write it for you. But look, Tyler, it's been awesome catching up and learning a little bit about what you're doing. Where should people look for you?
So you can find me and Flying Company on LinkedIn pretty readily. Also, I'm on Twitter, X, Tyler C. Flagg. I'm trying to start using that a little bit more to just kind of get the word out about things. But you can also go to flyingcompany.com. The partnership with CJP is at cjp.flyingcompany.com. And I'm also, again, I'm an idiot, so I welcome feedback and ideas and suggestions and everything. My inbox is open, so you can hit me up at tyler@flyingcompany.com, and I try to respond as quickly as I can.
Love it. Well, I'm sure some of the listeners will reach out, and it's been a pleasure having you on, and been great to get to know you, and look forward to catching up next time I'm over in Bentonville.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Tyler. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for flying with us today. If you're getting value from these conversations with other pilot entrepreneurs and executives, do me a really quick favor. Hit that subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what app you're using, so you'll never miss another episode. And if you've got an extra minute and you loved us, drop us a 5-star review. Those reviews help other aviation-minded business folk find us, and honestly, they really just make my day. What about you? Have you got a story about using your plane to grow your business, or maybe someone you know? Well, shoot me a message on X at Simon G. Turner or at the Chief Executive Aviator podcast, or pop me an email, simon@turneraircraft.com. See you on the next Chief Executive Aviator.